Story time about how my husband is threatening to cheat on me unless we have a 3-person sexy time, if you know what I mean. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. It's sending me on Instagram. My husband and I have been married for 5 years. The first year we were together, we had kids. We have 2 kids now, and they are my priority. A year ago, my husband started complaining about how I don't pay any attention to him anymore. I started doing my best to try to give him more affection and just more time with me, but it's so hard with the kids. My husband does help me with the kids, but he works a lot and goes to the gym a lot. So when he's not home, it's basically my responsibility to do everything for the kids. They never tell you how hard it is to have kids and how hard it is to look after yourself and your relationship. I suggested we have date nights, but we still haven't gone on any. I told him that we should just go to the beach and hang out on our own, but he kept making up excuses. A month ago, he asked me if I would ever consider having a 3-person sexy time. I hope you understand what I mean. I told him I wouldn't be comfortable with that, and he said okay. A few days after that, he asked me again. This time I probed and asked him why he was saying that. That's when he confessed that the only way he can stay faithful is by inviting someone else into our bedroom. I was really heartbroken. I never expected him to say anything like that to me, so I just started to cry. Then he got angry because I started to cry and told me that he needs to have more fun in this relationship. I asked him if he had already cheated on me, and he swore that he didn't. The kids were in the other bedroom, so I didn't want to start another argument. I let it go, but I couldn't stop thinking about what he had told me. That's when I got scared that he might actually cheat on me. I started becoming really insecure, and he hated this. I started asking him almost on a daily basis if he had cheated on me. He kept denying it, so I believed him. A few days later, we got into a fight about the kids. Out of nowhere, he starts threatening to cheat on me unless we have a 3-person sexy time. This time, he wouldn't let it go. He told me he would find somebody to cheat on me with, but for me not to worry because it wouldn't mean anything to him. He was basically asking me for permission to have an affair. I felt hopeless, so I finally accepted his offer. That's when he got really excited and started showing me pictures of girls at the gym. He told me he'd been talking to a few already and that he could get one of the girls to come to our house that very same week. Part 2 is up. Part 2 of how my husband is threatening to cheat on me unless we have a 3-person sexy time. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. It's sending me on Instagram. That's when he told me that he could have a girl come to our house this week. Felt like I had no choice but to accept because I didn't want him to cheat on me. Later that night, I asked him who he'd been talking to at the gym. He told me there were several girls at the gym that would flirt with him every single time, and that one of them had offered to come to our house. I couldn't get it out of my head that he had probably already cheated on me with one of these girls. I mean, why try to involve me when he could do it on his own with them? A few days later, he told me there was a girl that was willing to come over to our house on Friday. That's when my husband asked me to go get waxed and to go to the salon and do something to my hair. So I went to get waxed and got highlights at the salon. I won't lie, I actually felt really good after this. When my husband saw me later that night, he said I looked amazing. One thing about me, I've always been pretty athletic, and since having kids, my body has snapped back. I'm not very self-conscious about my body, but the thought of having someone else in our bedroom just made me feel gross. She finally arrived, and I was expecting a young hot thing. This woman was in her 40s. She was 12 years older than me, and she was not in very good shape. By the way, we left the kids with a babysitter, so don't worry. We all went up to the bedroom, and my husband poured us glasses of wine. That's when my husband kissed the woman. Part 3 is up. Part 3 of how my husband is threatening to cheat on me unless we have a 3-person sexy time, if you know what I mean. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. It's sending me on Instagram. The 3 of us were finally up in the bedroom. My husband leaned in to kiss her, and they were making out for about 30 seconds. Right in front of me, like I didn't even exist. That's when it hit me, and I realized what we were about to do. I was in my own house, in my own bedroom with a random woman who was older than me, and no offense, I thought I was definitely more attractive. Finally, when they stopped kissing, I tell my husband I can't do this. That's when he gets really angry, grabs me by the arm, and takes me into the hallway. He tells me if I don't do this, then I should just leave the house because he's still gonna do it with her, and that from now on he would be able to do whatever he wanted because I wasn't willing to cooperate. Thankfully, the woman came out of the bedroom and told my husband that it wasn't worth it if we were going to be arguing. He begged her not to leave. It was pathetic, but of course she left anyway. That's when he grabs his things and tells me he's going to the gym. Cried for 3 hours and went to pick up the kids. When my husband got home, he apologized and told me that he probably overreacted. Probably? Then he starts begging me to please reconsider doing it again with the same woman. That's when I asked him if he had a thing for older women. I told him that I was much more attractive and younger than this other woman, so why did he want her? Then he confessed that his thing is older women. Then he asked me what was the oldest I would be willing to go. I told him I didn't know if I even wanted to do it with someone else. That's when he started threatening again. He said he'd go do it either way and that I would just have to deal with it. That's when I told him that maybe we should just consider getting a divorce. He got so angry he smashed a glass on the countertop. After I let him calm down, I asked him if he'd already been having an affair with that woman. He keeps denying it, but something's telling me he already did it. Told me he wouldn't give me the divorce because he loves me, but he's also saying he's gonna cheat on me. I'm seriously considering inviting the woman back over just to please my husband. I know that's just gonna lead to bad things. I asked my best friend and she told me to just go through with it, and that if I have to save my marriage by having other people in my bed, then I should just do it. But I just can't bring myself to saying yes. I told my mom and she told me to get a divorce no matter what. She guarantees that he's already cheated. Should I say yes or should I leave him? Story time about how my husband hired a really hot assistant and now I want him to fire her, but he won't. Am I the asshole? Disclaimer, this is not my story time. It's sending me on Instagram. My husband and I have been together for 4 years. Now, I've never suspected him of cheating, but I have caught him lying to me a few times. A few years back, I checked his Facebook Messenger and caught him messaging another girl. The messages weren't exactly inappropriate, but they were definitely flirty. When I asked him if he was messaging anyone on Facebook, he denied it. That's when I unleashed the beast and told him that I had seen the messages. That's when he told me that he wanted to break up because he didn't want to stop messaging her. This was some random girl that he had met at his job. We actually did break up for a few days, but then he literally begged me on his knees to stay with him. Then I caught him lying a second time. He told me he was going out to dinner with a friend of his who I already knew, and it was a woman. I had no problem with him going out to dinner with her because we already knew each other from a few years back. At the time, I was away for work. After 8 hours, he still hadn't messaged me. I decided to call him, but he didn't answer. That's when I tracked his location and realized that he was somewhere in the city. He finally messaged me telling me that he was home and he was trying to get to sleep. I took a screenshot of his location and sent it to him. Then he called me begging me for forgiveness. He told me he thought I'd probably get jealous if he knew that he was still with her. Obviously, I wasn't gonna get jealous, it was just more upsetting that he lied to me. All of that was a few years ago. Since then, he's always been on his best behavior. About a year ago, my husband started a new company and it's been very successful. So successful that he's hired a full staff. Up until now, all of them have been men. But about a week ago, he told me he needed an assistant. That's when I told him I knew a friend of mine who needed a job. This woman is much older than us and would never be interested in my husband. But my husband told me that he was looking for somebody younger and someone that was interested in the field of work. A few days after that, he had finally hired somebody. I didn't really think anything of it though. By the way, I work in financing, so I'm usually working from home. My husband and I usually meet up for lunch, so I decided to go pick him up from work. But when I got there, a young hot girl asked me if I had an appointment to see my own husband. I told her I was the owner's wife and she laughed it off. She then apologized really quickly but didn't really mean it. Let me tell you how this girl was dressed. She wore a crop top and super tight leggings. She also had a full face of makeup on and her hair was freshly curled. It looked like she was dressed to go to a club, or at least trying to impress someone. Part 2 is up. Part 2, am I the asshole for wanting my husband to fire his hot assistant? Disclaimer, this is not my story time. I sent me on Instagram. After I told her I was the owner's wife, she made sure to stand up and show off her body to me. That's when I saw how tight all her clothes were. She then waltzed into my husband's office and tells him that I'm there. My husband quickly came out, almost running, and I asked him if everything was okay. That's when he said, yes, I just wanted to introduce you to my new assistant. Her name is Anna. Anna and I shook hands and I could feel that her palms were sweaty. That's when I knew something was up. My husband told her that she could leave for the day since he was going to be gone for a few hours. And guess what? She insisted on staying until he got back. And it's like she was doing it all because I was there. When my husband and I finally got into the car, I told him that I wanted him to fire her. He started to laugh and asked me why. I told him that the way she was dressed was incredibly inappropriate and that it looked like she was about to go party with all the makeup and hair that she had on. And of course, he told me I was overreacting and that he wouldn't fire her. Then he kissed me and reassured me that he wasn't even attracted to her. I asked him why he hired her and he told me that she was really smart and fast. Then I told him that if he didn't fire her, that him and I would have problems. He got in a bad mood for the rest of the day. Part 3 is up. Part 3, am I the asshole for wanting my husband to fire his hot assistant? Disclaimer, this is not my story time. It's sent me on Instagram. After the second time I told him to fire her, he once again said no and got in a really bad mood for the rest of the day. That's when I told him that it was clear that she had a thing for him and that she was obviously dressing up and putting on all that makeup and hair just for him. He told me that she had a boyfriend and that she wasn't interested in him like that. But I don't believe it at all. You know, women's intuition? From the moment I met her, I got the feeling she was trying to show off her body and her palms were sweaty as in she was nervous. That's when I decided I would go to my husband's office every single day. And guess what? I decided to dress up too. I put on a sexy outfit to pick up my husband the following day, and she was dressed in the exact same way. Super tight leggings, crop top, and showing off cleavage. Her hair and makeup were done again. As soon as she saw me coming into the office, she gave me a really dirty look. I asked her if anything was wrong and she said no. I couldn't help myself and I told her that the way she looked at me was weird. Then she apologized and told me that she didn't mean anything by it. My husband came out of his office and told me that Anna, his assistant, had already brought him lunch and that he didn't need to go to lunch with me. I was furious. I gave my husband a kiss and went home. I insisted once again that he needed to fire her later and he said no. So guess what I did? I got myself a really hot personal trainer. Of course, my husband got really jealous. I told him that I wouldn't stop working out with him until he fires his assistant. He thinks I'm being terrible for wanting him to fire her, but I don't trust that girl one bit. And I can't say I trust my husband 100%. Am I the asshole? Anyway, my trainer has been flirting with me hardcore. I'm planning on making my husband as jealous as possible. Bye. Story time about how my girlfriend is addicted to lip fillers, so now she looks ugly and I want to break up with her, but I don't know how. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. It's sent me on Instagram. My girlfriend and I have been together for 2 years. During that time, she's been obsessed with having bigger and bigger lips. When we first met, her lips weren't that thin, but she started watching the Kardashians and pretty much wanted to look like all the models she followed on Instagram. She asked me what I thought about her getting lip filler and I told her she could do whatever she wants, as long as it didn't change her face. She asked her whole family, but her sisters didn't want her to get the lip filler. They had a feeling that she would get addicted to it, so they told her not to. to. I thought they were just overreacting, but I was wrong. Last year, she went on a work trip to New York, and while she was there, she secretly got lip filler without telling me or her entire family. She sent me a picture of her new lips, and they actually looked pretty good. It wasn't too exaggerated, they just looked a little bit more plump. But after a few days, she decided to go back and get more lip filler. She said they didn't look big enough and that she just wanted a little bit more. I asked her to wait and not get the second injection, but she ended up doing it anyway. After her second injection, I asked her to send me pictures, but she wouldn't. She said she wanted to surprise me in person. I went to pick her up at the airport and her lips looked really big. She told me that the swelling would go down and that they would look a little bit more normal. Up until this point, I thought she looked really good. They were plump and it was actually really nice to kiss her. A few months later, she brought up the topic again. She told me she needed to even them out on one side, so she found another clinic to go to. They injected her with a lot more than she was expecting, so her lips looked really big. When she turned to the side, she looked like a duck. I started not wanting to kiss her and she noticed. I felt really bad for not wanting to kiss her, but every time I did, I could just feel the filler. It felt fake on my lips. After a few months, she mentioned the lip filler again. I begged her not to get any more and she said she wouldn't. Around Christmas time, I had a holiday party at my office. When my coworkers and my boss saw her, they were stunned. They asked me if that was the same girl that they had met before. I was embarrassed and made up an excuse to go home. Part 2 is up. Part 2 of how my girlfriend is addicted to lip filler. Now she looks ugly and I want to break up with her, but I don't know how. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. It's sending me on Instagram. After my coworkers and boss noticed how ugly she looked, I was so embarrassed I decided to leave the party. When we got to the car, I decided to be honest with her and I told her the truth. I told her I hated how big her lips were and how they changed her face and that I was no longer attracted to her. Her reaction surprised me. She acted like she didn't care and told me that she was going to continue doing whatever she wanted to her face. Part of me had to respect the fact that she was doing what she wanted, but it couldn't be healthy to have lips that big. I asked her if we could at least compromise and if she could not get any more filler. That's when she told me that she had already scheduled another lip appointment. She told me she just wanted to change the shape of her lips to make them look more natural. I thought this was maybe going to help her look like her natural self again, but boy was I wrong. We didn't speak for about a week, so the next time I saw her, her lips were doubled the size. It was literally impossible for me not to stare at them. I felt embarrassed being seen with her. Now don't get me wrong, I didn't want to just break up with her because I did love her. I knew I needed to do something. After I saw my girlfriend, I decided to go to her house. I spoke to her parents and her sisters and they all agreed with me that we needed to have an intervention. When she finally arrived home, we showed her pictures of her before and her after. We told her that we loved her face how it was before, and her dad basically begged her not to get any more lip filler. But she took it as a joke and told us that we were overreacting, that nothing was wrong with her face and that she loved the way she looked. And she told me I could use some lip filler myself. Part 3 is up. Part 3 of how my girlfriend is addicted to lip filler and now she looks ugly and I want to break up with her, but I don't know how. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. Send me an Instagram. After her family and I begged her to stop, she told us we were all overreacting and that I should be the one to get lip filler because my lips were thin. I knew she was probably joking, but I was so angry that she wouldn't take us seriously. I stormed out of her house and didn't speak to her for 2 weeks. She called me every single day, but I wouldn't answer. I finally gave in because I really missed her and we saw each other. I tried to look past her Donald Duck lips, but I couldn't. It's like her whole face is being swallowed by 2 pillows. She swore to her family and I that she wouldn't get lip filler anymore. But now she says she wants to get cheek filler. And I know that this is going to lead her to wanting more and more. When I kiss her, they feel so fake and rubbery. I even have nightmares about her new face. A few months ago, I decided to break up with her. But when I talked to her, I just didn't have the heart to do it. I feel like she's going to convince me to stay with her. So I've basically been avoiding her for the past months. Anytime she wants to hang out, I just make excuses. Her sister called me and told me that my girlfriend thinks I'm cheating on her. But I told her I was no longer attracted to her with her big ass lips. Her sister told me that she understood, but that I needed to break up with her face to face. I've written a letter basically saying that I love her, but I can no longer see her the same, but I can't bring myself to giving it to her, much less saying it to her face. I'm hoping you guys can help me out and give me some advice. She wants us to go on a couples trip together, but I'm afraid I'm just gonna stare at her lips all day. I told her I couldn't go on the trip because of work, but that's not true. I feel like maybe starting to act like a bad boyfriend is going to make her leave me, which will be easier on me. But who knows how long that will take. I've always been such a loyal boyfriend, but I can't take this anymore. I signed up to Bumble and I've been talking to other girls. I'm tempted to go on dates, but I can't bring myself to doing it. Not until I break up with her. But maybe the easier option will be to make her believe that I am cheating on her so that she can break up with me. I feel like such an asshole for saying this, but am I the asshole? Should I stay with her no matter what? Or should I leave her? What should I do?